Zoax.net, Lesson 34, Figures. A figure is a self-contained portion of content that can have an optional associated caption. The figure element is used to encapsulate that content so that it is treated as a unified whole. A figure is similar to an aside, but a figure is more integrated with the surrounding content than an aside. To illustrate the difference between a figure and an aside, consider this. If we were writing an article to teach calculus, we might include this figure of a tangent line at a point on the graph to illustrate the concept of a derivative. We might also put an aside in the article that explains the history of the development of calculus. The historical development of calculus is not essential to the understanding of the content, so we put it in an aside. That should give you some feeling for the difference between figures and asides. In our first HTML document, we have a typical example of a figure. Inside the figure element, we have an image element with its source file specified as a picture of the planet Venus. Underneath the image, we have a figure caption element. The figure caption contains an identifier and a description for the image. Here the image is identified as figure 1 and labeled as the planet Venus. Notice that we have included a line break element. This is necessary because we want the caption to appear below the image, which is an inline element. Opening the document, we see the image of the planet Venus with the caption below it. The figure element binds the image and the caption together as a whole, and when we add a border to the figure like this green one, we can see that it surrounds them both. Figures can be composed of many other types of information instead of images. In the second example, we have an extract from the poem An Essay on Criticism by Alexander Pope. The figure in this case is a set of lines of poetry, which are contained in a paragraph element. Inside, we used line breaks to delineate the lines of poetry. In this case, we do not need a line break at the end of the last line because the paragraph element is a block element. Below, we added a caption to describe the poem from which these lines were taken. The poem's title is inside a cite element. Opening the document, we see the lines of poetry with the title and author of the poem that they are from. The title, An Essay on Criticism, is italicized because that is the default style for a cite element. In our third example, we have an image of a painting of the Transfiguration. The title, The Transfiguration of Our Lord, is inside a cite element with the artist's name after it. Again, we followed this with a line break to put the image below it. Notice that this example puts the caption before the image inside the figure. We are only allowed to put the caption as the first or last element inside the figure, and the caption will appear either before or after the rest of the content, respectively. Opening this document, we see the caption above the image because it was before the image element inside the figure element. Our fourth example consists of a small C++ computer program. The program is inside a pre-element to maintain its formatting with some entities used for special characters. Above the program is a caption which contains the file name of the code file. The name is inside a strong element to set it apart from the code. Opening this document, we see our C++ program. Above the code, we have our file name main.cpp in bold, as specified by default styling for the strong element. As we see, figures can be comprised of many types of content. Our fifth HTML example illustrates one more type of figure. In this one, we use an SVG element to draw our main content. Below this, we have our caption element with a reference number and a description. Note also that we have included HTML entities both within our SVG element and inside the caption to display special characters like the subscript 0. Opening this document, we see one more example of a figure. This figure is typical of something that one would find in a mathematics textbook. The SVG element is ideal for creating these types of figures. We put a box around the SVG element because this is typically how such a figure is displayed, along with the numbering and description inside the caption. Our sixth and final example is used to illustrate the fact that a figure need not be limited to one piece of content. Here we have 3 images of different types of flowers with a caption beneath them. Recall that the caption can only be the first or last element inside the figure. In this case, it is the last and will appear under the images. Opening this document, we see the 3 images of flowers with the label underneath as specified by the caption. Figures allow us to encapsulate as many elements as we want and treat them as a single piece of content.